Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Hello and welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. This is our Christmas special episode. And today I'm joined by my guest and very dear friend from the USA, Vicki O'Grady-Longo, who is better known as the Joy Kindler. Hi, Vicki. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. So glad to be here. I love you.
Absolutely. This is something we don't very often get the chance to do. We do have a couple of Zooms during the year. We have met in person a couple of times over here in the UK when you've been in London.
Yay.
But this is great. Christmas, Christmas is upon us. You're the Joy Kindler. So what a great excuse to do a podcast
Yes.
in the month of December about joy and how that can impact business. So to get things off to a start, we'll get some sleigh bells going. There you go. Let's put an even bigger smile on your face. I've got my Christmas jumper on as well, and I don't do these very often. So I've got out of Mr. Grinch mode, especially for you. So how did you become known as the Joy Kindler, Vicki? And what has been your inspiration to bring joy into the workplace?
Well, joy has always been something I've been in search of since I was a little girl. And I always wondered what people that were so happy had, like what was inside of them. And, I noticed that a lot of people show up every day not as their best selves. And so I went to grad school at 55 and I worked on human motivation and pretty much studying the DNA of joy. And I say that loosely because there was no formal research. But basically, what I did is I just went into positive psychology, neurolinguistic programming. I took a guts course. I, did a lot of work around what causes people to actually have a more positive affect. And I was calling myself the Chief Joy Officer. I actually created a role, wrote the qualifications, and thought that I would pitch that to the company that I work for and to be their first ever Chief Joy Officer. And that kind of morphed into working with different groups of people. And one day, a friend of mine, his name is June Chang, he said, "Oh, well, what you do is you kindle joy at work. You kindle joy." He goes, "You're the Joy Kindler."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I love that." And it's just stuck. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been known across social media and in my company as the Joy Kindler.
Wow. So that's a new one to me. I wasn't aware of that. And we've known
Yeah.
each other probably a couple of years. I know I'm connected to June Chang. I know June. And yeah, so that's where it came from, the Joy Kindler. Isn't that nice? I think affirming to yourself that you're a certain way or you do a certain thing or you have a certain feeling is one thing. But for somebody else to impart such a fantastic name for you like that, I think it's wonderful. So well done, June Chang, wherever you are today. Merry Christmas. And what a great name. That's brilliant.
Yes.
So, oh my goodness, Vicki, I'm almost bursting with excitement because you and I get on like a house on fire. We always have a great laugh when we see each other. So to do this podcast, it really is a bit surreal. But can you, in the context of manufacturing, because my working life as an exec recruiter is within manufacturing. The business you work for, Pfizer, pharmaceuticals, that's, without manufacturing, we wouldn't be able to get medicines and vaccines and all these, fantastic, pharmaceutical products out to the communities. So manufacturing is important no matter where you look in the world. But in terms of the business world and manufacturing, how do you define joy, and what role do you think it plays in perhaps, being able to create a high performing culture?
Yes. I mean, that's the $1 million question. Everyone is looking at ways to understand what it is to get people back to work. And what does that actually mean to get back to work? Does it mean physically in an office? Does that mean a more collaborative, a more productive team? So what I've done is I've taken all of the research that I've done, as well as looked at how do we get more joy instilled in people, and what does that actually mean at work? Because
Yeah.
sometimes we don't really talk about these emotional things at work. But if you have people that are showing up every day in your manufacturing sites and they are not motivated, They aren't willing to be collaborative. They're not team playing, and they're showing up just to collect a paycheck. Mistakes will be made. There will be accidents because it happens all the time on the lines. You know,
Yeah.
I'm married to a health and safety guy, and it's really important to have all of your attributes turned on like a light switch when you come to work.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean to the person standing next to you? What does that mean to the people you face in your leadership? And what does it mean to the people that you're bringing into the organization? And how does that trickle down? And how does that cause people to be connected to the mission? How do they bring their why? How do they
Yeah.
have passion and purpose in their job? Because what I see every day is people don't want to work. I don't know what it is, but the vast majority of people go to work, but it's like they're asleep in the light. They're
Yeah.
going because they have a job, they're going to get a paycheck, they get some benefits, and it puts food on the table. But it's a drudgery. You know, I commute to New York City every day, and I go through the train, subway stations, the bus stations. And there are days where I take the bus and then I have to walk underground in Port Authority to get my subway. And I feel like I'm walking amongst robots.
Yeah.
Most people are disconnected and not engaged because they're wearing ear pods. So they can't hear anything except what they're listening to on their phone, and they don't want to engage.
Yeah.
They, you know, it's like a bunch of gerbils on a wheel just following each other. Let me get the subway. Let me get the bus. Let me walk to the office. It's
Yeah.
so routine and mundane that we've lost that human connection. So for me, it starts with joy because joy never travels alone. Joy is always found with abundance, and joy is always found with gratefulness. And I
Yeah.
started out saying that that was the jag of life, or that was the jag of work. You know, you can go a little bit deeper, because then I realized there were a couple things missing. So my keynote that I bring into organizations and corporations and sales teams is live in jagged. So how do you wake up every day and find yourself living with more joy, abundance, grace, and gratitude?
Yeah.
Because if you're not living from that place and you're not working from that place, what is your purpose? So for me, it's a mission field. And the passion project is to actually stand in front of people and ask them questions that would cause them to take a deeper dive into why they do what they do, and then help leaders understand what it is that's going to bring people back together, because it's not lost on me. We're in community. That's
Yeah.
what we are as humans. We're in families, we're in communities, we're in right. But what happened? You know, we thought it was going to be the sleeping pods and the massage opportunities and the coffee pods and all the things that we've created to get people to come to work isn't why they want to come to work.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that because I think over the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot of businesses. I'm not just talking about manufacturing, just businesses in general. Um, Certainly in the UK that have brought in, you know, table tennis tables or bar football tables, or, you know, like you say, these sort of pods and breakout areas. And I mean, I'm not knocking these things. They're all well and good for 5 minutes whilst you're on your lunch hour. But actually, the facts, going back to what you were saying earlier about people aren't engaged, I think that in itself is a pandemic the world over. You know, there are a lot of disheartened folk going to work because they have to, because they've got to keep a roof over their family's head. They've got to put food on the table. And we're all in that same boat. But I've certainly felt the necessity to live more of my purpose and my why through my work. Once you start seeing work as just a means to an end, just well, I've got to do this because we need money to live and pay the bills and everything else. That's where that other word comes in that you used earlier, and I'm going to repeat that: the word drudgery. I don't hear that word very often, thankfully, but I'm glad that you used that word, because that's exactly how I felt in the past working for other people. Where, yeah, you enjoy some of the job, you enjoy some of the people, but there are certain things that prohibit people feeling joy at work. Yeah, and some people do go to work with a spring in their step because they absolutely love what they do. But if you're in the wrong team, if the team around you aren't feeling it, if they're negative Noras and they always see the negative side of things, that just pulls you down, doesn't it? So, you know, work, yes, it is a means to an end. We've all got to work to pay the bills and keep a roof over our head. But like you say, I think it is about going deeper than that. It's about, well, why are we, not just why are we going to work? Why am I doing this particular job today? You work for Pfizer, who are doing great things with their pharmaceuticals, medicines, and all the rest of it. You know, my work involves people, executive recruitment. You know, I'm helping people with their careers. I'm helping to add value to businesses through people. And I love what I do. I love talking to people and finding out about them. Um, but some people have jobs where they're stuck in a team where there are silos or that nobody talks to each other. They're not valued. They don't feel rewarded. So all of these things, I think it all does come back to culture. You know, most of the problems in a business it revolve around culture, but joy is such a huge component of great culture, isn't it? So if you're not feeling joyful about yourself, you're not going to take that into the workplace. You're not going to be empathetic and maybe try and help someone else who's struggling.
Well, I
So
think too, I was thinking about like in the manufacturing sector, how it's so different from, kids that they go through school and they go to college. And,
yeah,
I don't think everyone needs to go to college. And I think there's something to be said for self gratification when we're using our hands. And at the end of the day, we've actually produced something and we have that you feel like you've done, like farmers, right? They plant the seeds, they
yep,
work the farm, and then there's a harvest. I always remember my grandfathers, both of them, especially my dad's dad, my grandpa O'Grady. He was always a factory worker, but when he came home, his day was done, and then
yeah,
he focused on his family. He had something that provided him with a means to make a living, but also the things that he worked on in the factory gave him a self satisfaction.
yeah,
And I think for a lot of people in their jobs, I don't think that they have self satisfaction because we're so tethered now and your job never ends. Our
yeah,
jobs are 24/7. We have phones, we have email, we have social media, we have internet. It's like, in the olden days, as crazy as that sounds, when you came home, your job was done,
yeah,
unless you were like a doctor or you needed to go back to the hospital or something. But today, manufacturing plants run 24/7, 7 days a week.
yeah,
Hospitals, the pharmaceutical world that I'm in, people need medicines 24 hours, 7 days a week. And I'm on the sales side. But I just see this conundrum where we have needs and we have wants, but how do we splice ourselves so that we work to live and we don't just live to work?
yeah,
And where is that personal satisfaction and that gratitude for what we do? And how do you find who you are in what you do? And how do you make sure that you belong in that culture? I think a
mm,
lot of people outstay their lifetime in their role. I think
yep,
people don't move on because they don't have the right coaching. I don't really like the word fit, but a lot of times people are brought into roles because they're meeting a census or the company has a quota that they're trying to meet. And I think deep down inside, everybody kind of knows that and it doesn't feel good. And then you're placed on a team, and the team is now having to work harder because maybe you're not as qualified for the role, or you could have been trained differently
yeah,
and brought up. I just feel like there's a lot of that undercurrent right now that no one's really talking about, but everybody's feeling. And that is certainly a joy sucker, you know?
yeah. I agree. I mean, we've got so many things in the business world. Well, not just in business, but just in society in general. Rules, regulations, trends, legislation. I
You
think
name it.
certainly, yeah, and the rest. I think from a business perspective, I this is my own personal opinion. Other opinions are of course available, but I do think there is an awful lot of posturing and tick box exercises going on in businesses because that is the way that
Just
governments.
the way
I
the
don't know
world.
who makes up all this new stuff anyway. The latest thing,
Yeah.
whatever that latest thing is, but I certainly from a recruitment point of view, my view will always be I'm not ticking any boxes for anybody. I will judge who is the best candidate for that role, and it's not going to be on their gender or their ethnicity or their beliefs or any. Just all of that is just a load of hogwash for me.
Yeah.
It should always be about who's the best person for that job, that particular job. And once you multiply that up and you've got different people in a team, if you haven't got people in the right places and you're not playing to individual strengths, and I've seen it before, you've had people in a team where that person's not the best in that role. So why are you making them do it? You know, that person clearly needs support with X, Y, Z. You know, you need to play to people's strengths. We're all unique. We should celebrate our uniqueness, shouldn't we? Businesses should celebrate and recognize that we're all different. Don't try and mold us all into the same mold because it's not working. And everybody should be recognized. Everybody, no matter what your beliefs are, what your gender is, where you're from, who cares? We're all human beings. We're all the same from that perspective.
And we all want the same
we
thing.
The same things.
The basic human need is to be loved.
Yeah.
So how do you get to the heart of the matter in business? Right. And that's where I come in as a chief joy officer to steer the conversation around what are you doing? And it isn't just about well-being programs either. I think a lot of corporations grasp at different things and they buy different opportunities and they say, oh, put this app on your phone and you can listen to this meditation, or, oh, you know, hook up to this and we'll count your steps. And again, it's more tracking and it's more pushing out. And my whole purpose is pulling people in. Yeah. How do we pull people into the mission? What is your mission? You know, what does it actually mean in a global perspective? Like, it's great to have these sayings on a wall or on the front of your handbook, but how do you take that off the wall and actually put that into the steps of your people?
Yeah.
How do you get your people to connect with what it is that you're making or what it is that you're serving? And how do you increase philanthropy? I think volunteerism and philanthropy has a lot to do with it. I think people feel connected. You know, that's the other thing I always say, that there's three points to a person's life: to be remembered, to be connected, and to be celebrated. And how good are we doing as corporations and manufacturing segments? How good are we doing at celebrating our people? The thank yous, the bonuses, the little things that make so much difference in a person's life. People just want to hear thank you.
Yeah.
They want a handwritten note. It isn't even about the prize. It's about being prized.
Yeah.
You know, the soul of a corporation, you know, the bottom of a shoe is based on the soul of its people. And that's what my thesis was about. How do you get the soul of your corporation so solid that the soul of your people can come in without a cloak? Yeah. They can be authentically who they are, because there is no such thing as me at home personally and me at work professionally. Like, we used to talk about personal and professional balance, right? It's not, it's a harmony. Yeah. And if you can't go to work as who you are, and I think that's what I see in the morning as people are shuffling off the buses and subways to their offices, it's like they're going through their metamorphosis. They're leaving their personal life behind and they're going to a job where they can't be themselves. And this is not across the board, because, you know, my husband works for a company where they're totally 100% authentically themselves day in and day out. They don't have to change, you know, but it's a social company. It's based on, you know, more entertainment versus my role in pharmaceuticals, which is much more, you know, professional. And there's a certain atmosphere of you know, importance. So I don't know. I think about, like, you as a recruiter. I think you're the gateway to changing the culture in a corporation, because the people that you bring to the table have already been vetted, and you now have this wonderful collaboration with John where you actually offer coaching as well. So that candidate is really going to be more well-rounded and more well-suited for the role that you're putting them in. And I think that has a lot to do with searching for the right people and making sure the right people are at the right place at the right time at the right table, which is, to me, is invaluable, because then you don't have, you know, joy in the workplace eliminates attrition.
Yeah.
Joy in the workplace eliminates firing someone. There's so much more to it that's underneath the surface. And when you talk about joy as a corporate value, it's just about holding the hearts and the hands and the souls of your people and making sure your people are okay and
Yeah.
have the tools that they need to be successful. But it isn't about, like I said, it's not about all the stuff. It's about the person. Do you, as the leader, know your people's names? Is your corporation so big that you don't even know who you're terminating in a reorganization?
Yeah.
Is your, do you have that connection? I met a leader recently who works for a company of about 10,000 people. And one of his things is every day he writes a handwritten birthday note to the people in his company. That is his priority. Everyone in that company, 10,000 people, do the math, right?
Yeah.
10,000 people get a handwritten birthday note from this leader. Imagine the ripple effect that that has in the company, that their birthday was remembered and the leader sees them.
Well, that's unusual. I can't imagine many leaders doing that. Certainly, of a in a company of a certain size, maybe a small family-owned business, that might be the norm, but certainly not in corporate.
Yeah.
Um, so on this topic, then, Vicki, of joy being, it's sort of like an underlying superpower, if you like. It can have such a ripple effect on lots of different things for the individual, for the business. How can organizations get that sort of, because I know what it's like. There's a lot of doubting Thomases out there, and it's like, well, what's in it for us, really? This is all very nice, but is it actually going to help us function better as a business? Is it going to make us more money? I think yes, in the long term, but you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? You've got to. I think it takes a brave leader to make that decision. Say, hey, we're going to embrace this because our culture does need a bit of work, and joy is one of those things that anybody can bring that into a business. But what have you got any examples that you could sort of give of where you've seen joy having led to a tangible improvement in the workplace, whether that's employee satisfaction, productivity, or whatever? Because I would imagine a lot of leaders will say, well, it's okay talking about joy, and in principle, yeah, it sounds great, but what people, you start getting the bean counter mentality then, don't you? So, well, what's been the financial impact? So are there any sort of tangible um benefits that you've seen from injecting joy into the workplace?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all you have to do is take a look at the first page on the World Happiness Report, and you can see everything that's been measured across the globe about companies that have high attrition,
Yeah.
less productivity. So I'll give you a personal example. At the company where I work, I was able to deliver something this week called a week of joy. And we married it with World Gratitude Day. And
Yeah.
every day we had a video that went out in an email to the people on my team. And each day had a different theme. And then we culminated the week with a hour of gratitude with our mutual friend, Kevin Monroe. We
Yes.
sent, we sent out "I'm grateful for you" cards and a thank you note from our president to the people in our division, about 1,000 people, a little bit
Yeah.
more. And just that one act alone increased productivity that week. The week ended with it was National Ice Cream Cone Day here in the United States. So everybody went out and got an ice cream cone. But what happened was I got feedback from hundreds of colleagues. They had never gotten an envelope in the mail from leadership before in their career. Some people here 30 plus years,
Wow.
with a thank you note that just said, "I'm grateful for you."
Yeah.
That energy led to more productivity, higher sales for that week, more engagement, and just this ripple effect of joyfulness that went out across the company. People really felt valued.
Yeah.
And it's a simple thank you note on a postcard that says, "I'm grateful for you" on one side. And on the other side, it was a heartfelt, "I see you. I know what you're doing out there. You're a revenue generating role. We need you. I'm proud of you." The things that you don't really hear at work.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
are people who've told me that they've got that postcard taped on the dashboard in their car.
As a reminder.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
just one example. We've been working on joy for a long time, and it's one of the corporate values. Unfortunately, when you undergo reorganizations and when you have changes, it kind of could be like an emotional vampire and take the joy away.
Yeah.
So we've got some repairing to do, and we're going to rebuild as we have new changes coming next year. But it starts with each one of us. So, from a corporate perspective, if you're a leader and you're overly concerned because, it's all capitalism,
Yeah.
you can't put profit before people. And I say that tongue in cheek because the whole reason that we're in business is to profit, right? But if your people know that you value them, and it does start with you as the leader,
Yeah.
it has to be
Yeah.
in your heart. You have to have gratitude. You have to have a gratitude practice. You have to have the ability to notice people. You have to have a way to segue out of the accounting side of the business
Yep.
and realize that there won't probably be exponential profit. There will be profit, but what we're talking about is exponential. And when you work with your people and you bring someone in like me, as a consultant who sits down with you and can put together a 21 days of dreaming program, 11 days in the power of joy, a gratitude encounter, a belonging workshop. These are things that are ongoing. And the good news is that they're not millions of dollars.
Yeah.
We're talking about less than $5 an employee. I delivered Joy Week for less than $4 and I think 47 cents an employee.
Yeah.
And the return on the investment was way more than that. So what happens is you have someone who can manifest opportunities, bringing in listening coaches, because listening is really important. So
Absolutely.
Colin Smith comes in and does this amazing listening workshop. And then after about 3 to 6 months, there seems to be a change in the tempo. And you start to see that people are engaging differently. Your numbers are starting to look different. And you're getting the impact that you want, both in the product that's being delivered, in the
Yep.
retention of your consumers, because now your consumers are picking up on that. And I know you shared a video with me this morning about joy is shared. Think about your marketing campaigns. There is a major company out there that we all get our products delivered to, and it's 3 older women who ordered something online and they went sleigh riding. And it was the experience, because joy is the experience
Yeah.
in your corporation. And that's what people want to feel. People want to feel. And right now, I don't think people are feeling. They're
Yeah.
afraid to feel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's really interesting. I couldn't believe actually that advert this morning. I was sat there having a cup of tea, just thinking about doing this podcast with you today. Today's Saturday, by the way, for anybody who's listening. And lo and behold, thinking about this podcast with the Joy Kindler, my great friend Vicki, and then I'm sat there and an advert for Amazon comes on the TV, as you say, with these 3 old ladies. One of them buys the other 3 look like a foam cushion to go on a sled or a sleigh,
Yeah.
however you
Yeah.
pronounce that. And they
Yeah.
all go bombing down this hill, probably
With
reliving a
joy.
bit of their youth with absolute joy. And I thought that is just surreal. I'm going to be online with Vicki in about an hour's time, and I've just had an advert on because the strap line at the end was it share the joy or something like that, wasn't it?
It's joy is better shared.
Joy is better shared. There you go. So
Yeah.
well done, Amazon, whoever thought that one up in your marketing team. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
So there's one thing that I'm trying to figure out in my mind then, and it's about how are organizations, and in particular the naysayers, the people that are probably a little bit dismissive about joy being a thing that you can bring into the workplace that's going to have this big effect. Well, actually, it will. But for the leaders out there, how are they going to achieve that balance? Because the business still has got to make money. It's got to be profitable. So there's that argument of, well, how much or when or how do we go about changing and injecting this joy into the business? We've still got a business to run at the end of the day. So how do they get that balance?
It's a good question, because you have to give to take, right? And you said before, How does this make sense? Well,
Yeah.
it actually makes CENTS. It makes sense because it'll offer the opportunity for people to be able to bring their gifts forward. There
Yeah.
are a lot of people who are able to do things at no charge. And there are a lot of people in your corporations who might like to lead an initiative.
Yeah.
Maybe they would like to be the one who sets up. The bigger you get, the harder it is because you have to have touch points. So you
Yeah.
have, you have colleague resource groups, we call them CRGs. You have philanthropy, volunteer opportunities. We have a Give Forward program. I think what happens is we get so spun around the market share and we get so
Yeah.
spun around the stock value. And then we just stop thinking about people as individuals. So, what does a leader do? A leader only has to meet someone like me and feel moved
Yeah.
and feel touched and ask the question. So, where do I start? Well, it starts with you. So, as the leader, you have opportunities to listen to books, to read podcasts, you need to get in touch with someone that's going to help you get in touch with yourself, whether
Yeah.
that's a corporate coach. Um, a great place to start is with someone like Paul Harry, who is
Yeah.
a belonging, heart-based leadership coach. He can come into the corporation and offer opportunities. I have a whole consortium of people that I work with that help me put these programs into position. You could start with
Yeah.
next week. You could start with just a day of joy. And what does that look like to your employees? Well, it starts out in the morning with coffee. It's a get to know the leader. Another way to impact your employees as a leader is to get a list, A to Z, and start calling 5 people a day. It's a 5 minute phone call. It's a touch point. Hey, I'm XYZ. I wanted to know who you were. It's kind of like it's the backwards way of connecting. So don't just call people when they do something good,
Yeah.
to call them to say congratulations, but pick up the phone and call your people and know who they are. And then you start to have this opportunity to remember, connect, and celebrate with the people that work for you.
Yeah.
So I know leaders are busy and I know leaders are, steering the ship, but the ship doesn't sail if your crew isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
there has to be time and opportunity for connection. And it takes a chief joy officer or someone that can come in and kindle joy as a consultant.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's an opportunity to sit down and take a look at what you have, what you've done, and what are we going to do in the future. Because I like to say it's sort of like behavior modification. You really can't change what's been done, but
Yeah.
you can ask, what are we going to do about it now? And now is here. So how do we change the future by working on the present with tools and programs and workshops and opportunities for people to dream again,
Yeah.
to see themselves in a different role, or to have the opportunity to be mentored? Do you have mentorship programs in your corporation, inside and outside? And what do you do to help people feel valued in that they're not just collecting a paycheck? So it's a reciprocity. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
You're
Very
giving
much
out
so.
a paycheck, but your employees are collecting it, and what happens in between? And it's a matter of opening up boardrooms, flattening leadership levels, allowing other people to come to the conversation, inviting the least hired, like the last hired person, because it's generational.
Yeah.
What do our different generations of people want, need, and see? What is it that makes them loyal? What is it that brings them their integrity? Because what a 70-year-old and a 60-year-old is looking for in a corporation is very different than what a 24-year-old out of university is looking for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
conversations around what motivates you, having an ear to the ground, even using a program like Harkin. Harkin is a new program out there that Hedon works with, our friend from Iceland,
Yep.
Chief Happiness Officer of Iceland, and it's done in anonymity. And it's a program that employees can actually express themselves in anonymity, but then the leadership gets a report
Yep.
on what's happening in the company. So that's something that people could take a look at too, which is also affordable.
Yeah, and it's like some of the things you've been saying. They don't have to cost a lot. The C-suite and the director level, or over in the US, it's VPs and presidents, divisional presidents, and things like that. But whoever's in charge, whether it's a departmental manager or a senior executive, you can make some time in your diary. If it's not every day or every week,
Yes.
if it's 2 or 3 times a month, you do that personal reach out to somebody a lot lower down in the organization. Imagine the impact. I can imagine that would be phenomenal for the person to get that phone call from somebody that they probably would never usually get to talk to in the business. A lot of the clients that I have over here in the UK are not so much your global multinationals with tens of thousands of employees. Some of them could be a business turning over 50 million, 100 million pounds. They might have 100, they might have 400 employees. So it's different. So but every company, every leader in every company can do something that they're not doing today, even if it was one tiny little thing. And if all the leaders in that business, from the board down through the organization, if every leader and manager just chose to do one extra thing, even if it was one thing a week, then you're looking at the whole organization have got a number of different sort of things happening across the grid where people are thinking, hey, somebody's noticed, or somebody's asked how I was. It can be little,
Yeah.
just little things, can't it? Joy can be such a. I honestly think it is a game changer. I probably shut out a lot of joy from my, not necessarily my life, but my sort of working life in different parts over the years, because you just, as you said earlier, a lot of people are just on that hamster wheel, and you
Yeah.
just, you go to work like a robot, you do what you're told.
Yeah.
Well, most people do. I've never been that good at doing that, but
I was in a like a big department store, and when you walk in through the front doors, they had a chalkboard wall, and they
okay,
had like a bucket of chalk, and it was for not the consumer, it was the employees. When they went in every day, they wrote down what they were grateful for.
yeah,
It was a wall of gratitude.
yeah,
And as a consumer, as I walked through the doors, I mean, I don't know how many people noticed, but I noticed, and I started reading what people were grateful for.
yeah,
And I was like, oh my gosh, what a great way to enter, a corporation. I know another person, Brent Pullman, who is the CEO of Midwest Laboratories, which is an ag business
yeah.
out in the Midwest. When you walk into the front of his building, his mother was a prayer warrior. They have a huge wall. It's a prayer wall.
Okay,
And if you have a prayer request, and I know that's like mixing, but this is what his company does.
yeah.
And then he prays for people as the CEO. He
Wow,
keeps track of those pieces of paper.
yeah,
And then like when they have a town hall, they speak to it. So I think it's really important to get employees together. And I know
mm,
some people will say, well, we can't break the line. We can't have a talk. We need to keep manufacturing. We can't stop the conveyor belt, whatever it is. But
yeah,
if you gave your people 15 minutes live of a meeting, like with someone like me that comes in as a motivational speaker, that changes the temperature and the energy in the room. And then
yeah,
they go off and do their job differently. The
yeah,
other thing too is I love Zoom, and we're on it right now, but there's just so much fatigue with being online. Our eyes are always attached to something, whether it's our phones, our computers, our laptops, our televisions.
yeah,
You need rest. And I think when you bring people in live to speak, you're using all of your senses,
yeah,
and you're bringing people in. And I also hand out little pieces of paper that are under the seat that people pull during the presentation. So now it's more tangible, it's in their hand. I ask for interaction. You have to get people engaged with all of their senses.
yeah,
We listen, we look, we hear. How do you engage, the kinesthetic aspect of joy? Because joy is better experienced, right? Joy is something that we do that's shared. It isn't just me lecturing about it. It's
yeah.
giving activities and opportunities for people to actually create more of it. and then all of a sudden realize it's bubbling up and welling inside of them,
Yeah.
and their neurochemistry changes. You
It's the
get those,
multiplier effect, isn't it?
yeah,
You're not going to keep joy to yourself. Well,
right,
some people might, but if you're feeling joy, you're feeling joyful about something or your job or something your team's doing, you want
yeah,
people to share that with you, don't you? Joy is okay for the individual, but I feel that it's multiplied up so many more times when you can share something with somebody else, and that makes you both joyful, or a team, or it just feels extra, extra, extra special. So why wouldn't anybody want to embrace a bit of joy?
yeah. Well, if you look at like social media right now, and you couple of books have been like, their joy seems to all of a sudden be something that people are looking at,
Yeah,
both personally. I feel that I've been in this space for a long time, but I'm seeing more and more people speak to it. And how do you get to the neurobiology of it?
yeah.
And how do you actually get it to infiltrate into a team? And is it something that you can produce, or is it something that you can induce? And I think it's a little bit
Mm,
of both. And I think that joy can be induced because, as you say, it has reciprocity. So
yeah,
if you have a team that's doing something like serving the poor food, or they're making meal packages, or they're writing cards for people in a nursing home, at first it might seem mundane. But after that 30, 45-minute workshop, and you can do them over lunch, right?
yeah,
All of a sudden, the next team that comes in is picking up on the vibration of the team just did the activity.
yep,
And now you've got raised energy, and that leaves your workplace and that goes home. And people bring that joy home. And that can change. Not everybody goes home to love. A lot of
absolutely.
people go home to lonely.
Yeah,
And loneliness is the number one epidemic in the world right now. So
yeah,
lonely people don't have joy. So it just takes a spark. That's why I'm called the Joy Kindler, because I kindle joy with one spark. And then when you have a spark, you have other people coming to that light. And it's
yeah,
just about positivity. And am I always this way? No, I have moments too, but I know how to bring it. I know how to tap into it, and I know what to do to change my own circumstances so that I can show up as me and actually impact you. And that's really what joy is about. Joy is
yeah,
about impact. Joy is about fingerprinting. Joy is about what do you leave behind. Joy is about legacy. Joy has so much to do with just living. It's a birthright.
yeah,
Joy is eternal. Joy is given to us at birth. I don't know how we lose it, but I just feel that there needs to be a reminder, and that we can take people back to their own soul song, and that changes everything.
yeah,
Because when you hear your own soul song in your job, you're going to do your job better, because your job has meaning. So when I go to work every day, what I think about is the lives of the patients that I'm impacting downstream.
yeah,
So I may be conversing with healthcare providers, and I may be providing intellectual clinical data, but in the end, the outcome is to be passionate about patients
yeah,
and patient focused. So when I go to work every day, I recognize all of the people behind me that I'm supporting,
yeah,
and whose roles I'm providing an opportunity for: the packaging team, the manufacturing team, the scientists, all the people that touch the product that I represent
yeah,
until it gets into the patient's hand. So if you've got people on a manufacturing line creating a gadget that's going to go into another product that's going to make somebody else's life easier, that's completely different than just going to work every day and working the line. You actually
absolutely.
understand that there's an outcome that's going to benefit somebody. So as
Yeah,
leaders, if you can instill that viewpoint in your employees, that it isn't just putting about the cap on the bottle, or it isn't just about making the spring that's going to go in something that's going to make something else work. I mean, we can go like full force on just talking about
yeah.
that. But what is it that you're a part of? Do you understand the bigger picture? And when you're coming to work every day, is that bigger picture driving you to be your ultimate best?
I think that captures so much about what's great in manufacturing. and the opportunities in manufacturing. And if people can align what their own purpose is, what they want to get out of life, what they want to get out of a job, and then align that to different types of businesses or different career paths, I think everything would run a lot smoother. But you have absolutely hit the nail on the head. It's about purpose, isn't it? It's about your why. It's about the business's why as well. So, wow, we've covered so much ground, Vicki, in a short space of time on this podcast. I know I'm going to be talking to you in more detail about Joy offline and when we meet up next. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining me on Insights for Manufacturing. This is going to be the last podcast of the year. So when this comes out, it will be, I think, Friday the 22nd of December. So what a great way to end the year. So it's been a real joy to have you join me on the podcast today. So Vicki O'Grady-Longo, the Joy Kindler, thank you so much.
Thanks.
And yeah, so I hope the audience have got some really good takeaways there from that discussion. Joy is for everybody. It doesn't have to cost a lot. Sometimes, very often, it costs nothing. So well, I wish everybody a very happy and peaceful Christmas and New Year. Vicki, thanks again. We'll see you soon. And that wraps up today's episode of Insights for Manufacturing. Any last thoughts, Vicki?
No, just if people are interested in having a discovery call to talk about it, I can be reached at thejoykindler.com. And if you'd like to know more of the backstory about who I am, I published a chapter in a book called Mission Hope, and this is available on my website, thejoykindler.com. And it's a little 6-page story about how I found joy and how you can too.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds like a story to read maybe on Christmas Eve.
Sure.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Vicki. Good to see you. And we'll see everybody else in 2024 for season 5 of Insights for Manufacturing. So thanks very much and see you next time.
Choose joy.
Bye-bye.